earning only $1,000 a month? That's like a college student's allowance. Even students make more, don't they? Having a low-income daughter-in-law is embarrassing for our family. Maybe you should get a divorce right away? My son John deserves a better wife. After all, he's highly educated, earns well, and is tall.
As she looks at the pay stub, my mother-in-law has been making snide remarks. But the truth is, it's not even my pay stub. My name is Arya, and I'm a 32-year-old nurse. I've been married to John for 5 years. We met through a university club, became a couple, and eventually got married. Our first encounter was at a party when he was a medical student, and I was studying nursing. John managed to get into medical school, but he hasn't passed the national medical exam yet. Currently, he works part-time as he continues to study for the exam. Meanwhile, I've been working in the nursing field right after graduation, so my income primarily supports our household. But John, he's the type who reads heartfelt accounts from people who've lost loved ones due to illness, checks daily updates on infectious diseases, and reads literature about healthcare system issues. Although he's not a doctor yet, I deeply respect him for wanting to genuinely help patients. I couldn't possibly abandon him just because he's in his 30s and doesn't have a stable income. And here's the secret: John hasn't even told his parents that he's not a doctor yet.
Sorry, my mom is being annoying.
Oh well. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Even though I'm your wife, I've forgiven you, so you don't need to worry about your parents. Just follow your own path. You only have one life. And that was our little secret. As for why it hasn't been discovered, John works as a night security guard at the hospital where I work. Technically, he's employed by the hospital, so it's not entirely untrue. Although he didn't pass the exams, he still has knowledge, and I can provide him with information from the field. He can carry on plausible conversations, and no one suspects that he's not actually a doctor yet. So, during the rare occasions we meet my in-laws, I've been saying things like, "Oh yes, he's very popular with the patients." Sometimes, a gentle lie can be more helpful than a harsh truth. In reality, telling a patient, "You have only 3 months left to live, and there's no cure," is less effective than saying, "Your complexion looks good today, and you've had a hearty meal." Humans are like that. Now, let's talk about John's serious and honest personality. In stark contrast, my mother-in-law is quite difficult. She's the classic type who bullies her daughter-in-law. And she can't fathom why a doctor like John would marry a mere nurse like me. My mother-in-law boasts,
"Oh dear, there were plenty of better options. Like a dermatologist. A beautiful female doctor."
I always respond with a polite, "I'm sorry." I genuinely support John's pursuit of becoming a doctor, even though he's currently just a university graduate working odd jobs. He's not even an intern yet. But John himself sincerely expresses gratitude to me.
Thank you for everything. Always.
And I reply, "It's okay." In reality, I'm incredibly busy with work. Our combined income barely covers our expenses, but that's how it is. Money isn't my primary concern. I entered this field because I genuinely admire Florence Nightingale. Currently, I work as a nurse in the demanding field of internal medicine. I don't dwell on financial desires. As long as I can live, eat, and stay healthy, I'm content. Isn't that what life is about? Yet, despite being the couple that supports John's life and education, my mother-in-law somehow manages to brag to the neighbors.
My John is a doctor, earning quite well.
In the first place, even if a serious-minded doctor earns well or poorly, they wouldn't want their mother to boast about it. But my mother-in-law is relentless, always going on about money. Money, money. As for John, he has no choice but to remain silent and endure. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine standing in a hospital wearing a security guard uniform. In her mind, she's proudly parading him around in a doctor's white coat, completely oblivious to reality. But honestly, even if he were striding confidently in a white coat, it's not something to brag about. I understand her feelings, but she should rein them in. I feel sorry for John, who's barely hanging on to his dream of becoming a doctor. After all this effort, it's heartbreaking to think that he might end up as a security guard. And he's genuinely suited for the medical profession, with kindness being his only weakness. And then there's my mother-in-law.
My John earns $500,000 a year.
She throws around speculative statements, and for John, it's an unnecessary burden to deal with the falsehoods. I've gently expressed my disapproval. It might be best not to talk too much about his job. It's for the sake of the patients, you know. Because really, if I put myself in the opposite position, would I want to seek treatment from a doctor whose mother is bragging when I'm feeling unwell? But my mother-in-law doesn't care.
You're so annoying. You, a mere nurse, should consider yourself lucky to have married a doctor. Money can't buy status, you know, just a nurse.
And she spews out hurtful words. I responded, yes, I apologize. Thank you very much for allowing me to marry John. I also deeply respect him, both as a doctor and as a person. So please, just leave us be. But she persists.
You're still annoying. He could still divorce and remarry. It's possible. I wouldn't want my unborn grandchild to have low-class blood mixed in.
Honestly, this is beyond mere teasing. It's almost a violation of human rights. Yet, I remain silent. Somehow, compared to saving patients' lives or fulfilling my duty at work, my mother-in-law's snide remarks seem trivial. I can't even bring myself to engage with her properly. However, amidst those days, the long-awaited moment finally arrived. In reality, my parents-in-law's home is a 30-minute train ride from our house where my husband and I live. Since we didn't visit them often, and I was busy with work, our relationship with the in-laws wasn't particularly deep. Thus, our previous lies had been effective. But one day, for reasons unknown, whether out of boredom or impatience, my mother-in-law suddenly showed up at our place.
This house is so cramped. Why does my pride, John, have to live in such a shabby place?
As she glanced at the neatly arranged medical textbooks, her eyes narrowed.
Well, just as I expected from my John.
She even took photos with her phone, but the majority of the books were past medical exam question collections. Internally, I was nervous because this year's materials were also there, clearly revealing that he was a current exam candidate. My vital signs were in jeopardy. However, I put on my best act. Apologies. Both of us are busy with work, and we haven't had time to move. Given the current circumstances, I subtly tried to encourage her to leave. But to my surprise, my mother-in-law began searching in our house.
Hold on. What's with these odd dishes? If you're a doctor's wife, you should buy prestigious tableware.
I'm sorry. We use affordable ones.
You should throw away such things.
Well, given that John's study materials and tuition fees were costly, we couldn't afford extravagance. As long as the food looked presentable, that was enough. Right now, passing the exams is our top priority. John happened to be working as a security guard at the hospital that day. It was fortunate that he wasn't home. I didn't want to witness him getting hurt, so I had hoped my mother-in-law would leave while he was still at work. However, her house-hunting efforts persisted.
Why is he wearing such student-like clothes? If he's a doctor, you should buy high-end designer clothing for him.
She discarded the clothes that John loved. And then,
What's with this watch? If he's a doctor, you should get a luxury timepiece for him.
apparently, she hadn't realized the convenience of a smartwatch and threw it away. John's personal belongings were being discarded one after another, things he had painstakingly purchased with hard-earned money. Despite his pride likely being shattered by standing outside instead of practicing medicine within the hospital walls, he continued to strive for his dreams, fueled by his blood and sweat. But there was no stopping her actions anymore.
How can a doctor live such a poor life? It's because he married the god of poverty. Why isn't he living in a luxury high-rise? It's absurd. Unbelievable, really. I even thought we could go shopping together and get a nice bag from you.
Before addressing John's status as an exam candidate, I had to point out that my mother-in-law's expectations of him were fundamentally misguided. As a fellow professional, I knew that money-driven doctors were out of the question. I apologize for being forward, but he's not that extravagant. Our current lifestyle aligns with our means. I subtly conveyed this, but my mother-in-law remained unyielding.
You're so annoying. Do you know how much John struggled to get into medical school? And now we're waiting for the return on our investment in his upbringing and tuition fees. Yet, because of you, we're in this mess. Don't play games with me.
The mother-in-law, perhaps increasingly agitated, did not stop her inspection of the house. She rummaged through the kitchen and then proceeded to check every closet, discarding anything that was cheap. Shockingly, she even started to open a box where utility bills and other papers were stored. That's when a pay stub appeared, showing an amount of about $1,000. John's name was clearly written in the name field, but whether due to her farsightedness or not, the mother-in-law didn't notice it at all.
$1,000?
She screamed.
What is this? $1,000? You, a nurse. That's less than what John makes in a day. You, the wife of an internist, only making $1,000? Are you slacking off at work or what?
She began to go mad.
So this is why you're living in poverty. You're a money eater, aren't you? Not working properly, seducing a doctor while being just a nurse, working as if it's just a part-time job because it sounds good. $1,000 is nothing. You might as well quit.
That money was what he earned, fitting in work between study times, on an $80 daily wage. It was a pure number that could never be considered the same whether it exists or not. But the mother-in-law's frenzy didn't stop, leading to the worst-case scenario.
You poverty-stricken thing. Get a divorce now.
At that moment, the sound of the front door slamming shut could be heard. John had returned home from his part-time job. He saw his clothes and watch, mercilessly stuffed into a trash bag, and his expression froze completely. Then, he began to pick up each item silently and carefully. But the mother-in-law.
John, I'm not saying anything bad, but divorce this wife. Why, with your high education, high income, and tall stature, did you choose such a shabby woman? Your mother is sad, especially with a woman who earns $1,000.
But John remained silent. His expression was stern, and I couldn't tell what he was thinking at the moment. Then, as if to deliver the final blow, the mother-in-law said,
I've brought the divorce papers. Now, leave this dusty room quickly, throw away this disinfectant-smelling woman, and remarry a better woman. You're a doctor. Remarriage is natural.
And she laughed heartily. Then John slowly stood up and finally said,
Mom, I've been quiet until now, but I'm not a doctor yet.
What?
I'm sorry for keeping it a secret, but I haven't passed the national exam yet. And that $1,000 is.
The mother-in-law, seemingly overwhelmed by surprise, turned to me for answers.
Wait, what is he talking about? This $1,000 pay stub, it's yours, isn't it?
Resigned to the situation, I replied, No, that's not mine. John then added,
That's my salary. From my part-time job.
No way! You're lying, right?
No lie, it's the truth. I'm not a doctor yet. I've failed the national exam twice.
The mother-in-law, either shocked by the revelation that John was not yet a doctor or by some coincidence, began to act erratically and then slipped on a newspaper ad she had scattered earlier, falling to the floor.
Help me!
She had slipped and fallen, but managed to brace herself with her arms, sparing her head, though her dominant right arm made a severe snapping sound and was likely broken. John and I quickly administered first aid to the patient and safely transported her to the hospital's orthopedic department. But then John said,
Mom, I'm sorry, but please don't come to our house again. And I'd prefer you no longer think of me as your son.
The mother-in-law was trembling from the various shocks when John continued.
I knew you were boasting about me, and I tolerated it. I felt guilty for lying. But after being insulted so much for the money I worked hard to earn, that's a bit too much.
I never imagined you weren't a doctor.
Whether I'm a doctor or not doesn't matter. I'm an adult, and it seems we can't bridge our differences in values, so let's cut ties.
And with that, John decided to sever his familial ties with his mother. The mother-in-law, whose only pride was boasting about John, seemed utterly deflated. Now, she reportedly stays home, too ashamed to face the neighbors. Later that year, John successfully passed the medical board exam. Though he was a bit older, he shone brightly as a new intern, never forgetting to show kindness, such as offering coffee to the security guards. And so, we were blessed with very peaceful and happy days. If only the mother-in-law had waited a few more months, her wish would have truly come true, and she would have seen John in his white coat. It's a pity, really, a case of reaping what one sows.
How was this story? If you liked it, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.